always said the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
These are the voices of New Afrika. These are the voices of New Afrika. These are the voices of New Afrika. Free in the land, and we ain't asking y'all.
Sorry, my mic wasn't on. But anyway, let me do this over. Welcome to another episode of the Voices of New Afrika, the show where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. I'm your host, Brother Prophecy, and I'm here with my comrade, with my brother, with my elder, Grandmaster Teacher. How you doing, comrade?
Great today as I can. Imperialism and neo-colonialism.
Great under the circumstances of being under imperialism, colonialism. Now, you know, every day, oh, let me get this off the screen. Every day, come in and I basically ask the same question and you give me that same answer. You're doing best you can do under the circumstances of being under imperialism and colonialism. What do you mean by that, comrade? What you talking?
I mean that we are not free as a people, and because we are not free as a people, we can only do the best we can under the circumstances under which we are being exploited, under which we are being we are a captured people. We are under a oppressive nation state called the United States, and we're an oppressed nation, and being oppressed under an oppressor nation makes us limited in terms of things that we're able to do as free people. We're free to the extent that we are able to struggle against these systems of imperialism and capitalism and colonialism and now neo-colonialism, which means black skins with white masks who pretend to be in charge of our own destiny. We are not in charge of our own destiny, so therefore we're struggling still to control our own lives, and we're going to struggle as much as we can to develop our own nation state in terms of self-determination, because it's only when we become self-determined that we are able to say that we are free at last.
Okay, all right. So basically, on the mute this mic. Y'all excuse me, we having a little technical difficulties today. We trying to work it out. But one second. My stuff to act right. But hopefully y'all can hear me. There we go. Now you take it over, they just knocked me out.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, African people, new African people, we are under imperialism and capitalism. The world system of capitalism has held us to be exploited, and we do not have control of our resources. African people throughout the world do not have control of the resources about which we abundantly have on the African continent. Even in the Western Hemisphere, we have countries that have more oil than any other oil in a country like Venezuela. So the African people in Venezuela are struggling in poverty and forced to leave their nation because the United States has put an embargo such as what they put on Cuba to prevent us from being able to sell our product and process our oil. And Venezuela has the largest oil deposit of any nation in the world, and yet the people are struggling for poverty, and also we are under the oppression of the United States imperial empire to the point of where they're overthrowing our governments, and they're controlling governments that should be controlled by us, such as in Haiti. And we have to begin to understand that we are part of that process. In other words, even when we talk about being a part of the so-called election process in the United States, we find that the black mayors have no power, that the black president supposedly didn't have any power. He was just an individual, but he was being used. That's why we said black skin, white mask, because they pretend to be in power, but they're actually acting on behalf of the white imperialist power, such as the United States, Britain, France, and Portugal, and Spain. And these countries still control the resources of our nation, Africa, and in the Caribbean, control all the cobalt, the aluminum and everything, that bauxite in Jamaica and places like that. And we got to begin to understand that as a people, we must become, understand that we must separate ourselves from these imperial powers and do everything and fight to the death to overthrow these systems, because we have not and will not benefit from the capitalist system. The world capitalist system is still run by the same people that basically ran it back, when it was first originated under slavery. And so even though, we have Russian participation and Chinese participation in the world, capitalist market, the Europeans and the United States still control and run and rule the world in terms of the resources and things like that. So we got to begin to ourselves understand that it's only when we have become an independent nation that we'll be able to develop our own resources, and we'll be able to empower ourselves, to organize ourselves, to be a participant in the world system. But we don't want to be capitalists. We're going to be socialists. And so because we understand that the capitalist system ultimately will fall, because it's only for the rich and the super rich, and their numbers are dwindling to the extent that we know they're going to fall, because that's the way empires go. All empires ultimately will reach their limit and will be overthrown by the forces that are inside and internal to their system.
Exactly, and I thank you for taking over while I get my equipment operating right. I think we got it now. But yeah, you said a lot of very important points, and one thing I want to reiterate is, as you said, in many places, many countries, many of them supposedly are sovereign, supposedly have their independence, but they don't have control over the resources in their own country. They don't have the power to take advantage of the natural resources in their hands, because there's some European power, some European force, which is controlling the resources, which have power within their own country. In fact, many of the leadership are just simple puppets for European and other Western countries, oppressor nations, which basically create a situation of what you said, neo-colonialism, where these puppet leaders in black countries are doing the bidding, are working on behalf of the European power structure, the white power structure. Like even when people were rejoicing in the United States that, oh, we have Obama, we have a black president, it's still, he, regardless of whatever he had in his mind and his heart, he's still working on behalf of a system that is based on the exploitation of our people. So one thing we have to be looking at, especially for our specific condition and situation here in America, is it doesn't really matter if they change laws, put laws on the books. If you have no power, it really don't make any difference. I mean, you can go back to the end of chattel slavery. What was the law? Wasn't that a civil rights law or something signed after chattel slavery? What was the name of that law?
The amendment, 13th Amendment.
Now it was
after Jim Crow law.
Not the law. It was after chattel slavery ended. There was a law passed. Yeah, I think it was the first civil rights bill.
Civil rights, yeah. There were in the 1880s. There was civil rights bill.
Yeah,
passed.
Yeah. That happened in the 1880s. Right. You know, and you think that there was a civil rights movement 100 years later dealing with some of the same issues. So it's not just a matter of we need to change some laws. If we don't have any power to enforce them laws, then the only thing we're doing is we're begging individuals who actually do have power, who do have authority to do right by us. And by doing right by us, that means you're asking them to go against a system that has benefited them for centuries. Benefit because this system benefits from the exploitation of our people, and it has been built on the exploitation of our people. So we're dependent on the people who have gained their power, their influence, and their wealth off of the backs and the exploitation of us to try to do right by us. And that's just, it ain't working out. You know what I'm saying? It's just not working out. So I don't think it's even intelligent for us to continue to go that route, because we've seen where it goes. The only thing that really happens, the only thing that really changes are the appearances of things. The very nature of the exploitive system still stays intact because these individuals who are in power don't want that nature to change. Why would they? Because they are benefiting from it, and they have been benefiting for over 400 years. So what we got to do is we got to redirect that. We got to change that. We got to say, okay, what we have to do is we have to change the power relationship. We have to, it's just like if you living with an individual in their home and you don't like their rules, you don't like the way they're treating you, you don't like all of these things, well, then it's time for you to move. It's time for you to get your own, so you can dictate how things should go, so you can create the rules, so you can create the laws, so you can do things that are going to benefit you. You know, because it goes back to what we always talk about, because like we say, the foundation of freedom is land. You not only do you need land, you need independence. You need to be able to take care of yourself. You don't need to be dependent on another country, another individual, another ruler, power structure for anything. If you do, then you're going to be subservient to that individual. So you got to have independence, and you need self-determination or nationhood, self-government. They really all mean the same thing. But you need that because you have to have the ability to govern yourself. You have to have the ability to create the laws that benefit you, that work on your behalf. The laws are that's going to allow you to rise to the highest level of your human potential. You have to be able to do these things. And the last thing that you need in order to truly have a free society is you got to create an economic system that is not based on the exploitation of each other, of man by man, like capitalism is. Capitalism is a system that is based on the exploitation of human beings. And as long as that system exists, you're always going to get exploitation and some level of slavery. That's what you're going to get, because that's what it creates. Capitalism creates poverty. It creates disease. It creates violence. It creates crime. It creates all of these things, because that is the nature. Not only does it create these things, but it exploits these things. Individuals get rich and wealthy off of the plagues of society. That's why they don't get rid of it. You can have a poverty on drugs, but it ain't really a war on drugs, but it's not really a war on drugs. It's war on individuals who have been, their communities have been flooded with drugs that they use as an economic opportunity, because all of the other economic opportunities have been stripped from their community. So it's an attack on these people, which now fuel a prison industrial complex. So even though it sounds good, sounds like you're doing something to benefit the people, we're going to have a war on drugs, a war on crime, a war on poverty. But the only thing that it really does is it further exploits people. It just exploits them in a more clever way. It comes in the package of something that is here to help you out. But that is the nature of this economic system. That's why I say, as long as this economic system exists, you're always going to get some form of exploitation of the people, because that is what it's based on. And what we're trying to do is not try to duplicate a system that is exploiting man, that is exploiting human beings. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to build something different. We're trying to build something better, because we are able to. You know, we have in the past. I want to go to our social media, everybody out there in social media land. And if you out there, you listening to us, hit that like button, but just hit the like button right now. You know, give us a like, show us some love. And it also helps us with the algorithm or whatever, how Facebook do it, to push us out and let other people know what we got going on. But I see Hamisha Howard, how you doing? It's a legacy right there. Good to see you, brother. He said, free the land, Uncle Prophecy, and for Dolly. And free the land to you, brother. It's always good to see you. Yeah, always good to see you checking in. Always good to see you checking in. Queen T. Jones, how you doing, Queen? Good to see you also. The beautiful Queen team. She got because she got all this beautiful melanin in her skin and stuff like that. So, you know, it's always good to see you checking in. Free the land, Black Power. And also same to you, Queen. Comrade MC Spectacular, this rapping ass dude right here, also gardening dude, and a liberator and intellectual, and the brother who be doing his own podcast, brother Obafini. How you doing, man? Free the land, peace, brother. Peace to you too. And man, yo, we got to get that show together, because me and this brother, I'm gonna speak it into existence. We gonna put out a show that's gonna highlight these conscious artists, because believe it or not, rap music is not completely filled with people who are trying to destroy our community. There are a lot of brothers and sisters out there who are producing content that is designed to liberate our people. Point blank, period. Man, you know, I got my stuff about to die. That's kind of jacked up. But yeah, good to hear from you. But yeah, we just talking about how you can have rights in the country, you can have laws passed in the country, but if you don't have the power to enforce them, if you don't have the power to stand up for yourself, to do for yourself, then it don't really matter what the laws say. I mean, just prime example. Look at what happened to Brother Rashid Carter in Mississippi. This brother had individuals, white men, who were chasing him, threatening to kill him. He went to the police, the white police officers, and said, "Hey, I need some help. Yo, these people trying to kill me." And they just brushed him off. I ain't nothing we could do. And he was like, "Yo, can I at least get a ride?" Because he was he was in Mississippi for work, because the area in which he lived, the town in which he lived, his business, he had a shrimp business. It was closed down due to COVID. So he had to travel to travel to the next town over for employer. He didn't have transportation. So he was kind of stranded. You know, he was kind of doing the best he could. And he was, you know, asking for help. And the police was basically just like, "Well, I can't do nothing. We're not a taxi. Can't help you, you know." And he called his mother saying, "Look, somebody trying to kill me. If I die, these individuals killed me. This is who did it." You know, and a lot of times we hear that, we don't really think something's actually going to happen, but something happened to this brother. 1 month from that day, they found this brother's bodies. They had been completely decomposed, and they didn't find his body. They found body parts. They found his skull, his head. So in other words, he had been decapitated. They found his spine over somewhere else. And if you think, a brother who predicted somebody was going to kill him ended up mutilated, body parts spread all over this individual's land, you would think that that's obvious. Just, hey, We need to investigate this. There's something suspicious up with this brother's death. But did the police do that? They said no. They said, well, hey, I don't see any evidence of foul play here. This looks like just, some natural happened to him. Whatever they could have done, they could have naturally decapitated this brother. I don't know what that is. But it took people protesting and raising hell before any attention even came to this case, because the authorities, the individuals in power, said, I'm not worried about you because you are from a people who have no power, so I can do anything to you. So before I do anything, you gotta protest, raise hell, get the news down, give all kind of attention to this subject before I even lift a finger for you. We shouldn't have to beg people to investigate something that is so obvious. Just like the Memphis aquifer, the Bahia pipeline. They was right here in Memphis, Tennessee, IWL City. They was trying to run an oil line right above a natural water source in a Black community who has experienced tons and tons of environmental racism. They've had situations where babies have been born with cancers and all these type of terrible things throughout the years, and they're trying to be victimized again. Why? Because they become from a community that has no power. Although it would have been a lot easier, cheaper to just run it straight through Germantown, but Germantown got all them rich white folks. They ain't finna do that. They're not going to do that to those people. They're going to do it to these individuals because you're Black, you're poor, you have no power. So therefore, that is what they call that. What did they call it? I'm sorry. The least of the path of least resistance. But it wasn't until people in the community raised hell again, protested, and people worried, oh, they about to tear the place up, before anybody even gave this any attention. We shouldn't have to be that. That shouldn't exist. So that tells us right now that our struggle shouldn't be, well, we got to go out and vote. We got to go out and maintain this system. We got to go get some reform to try to make this system better. No, we need to empower ourselves. And if the only way we're really going to gain power is we gain control of land, the institutions, get some independence and some self-determination. I'm turning this over to you, Grandmaster Teacher.
Yeah, so it's important that we understand that, because for countless numbers of years, we've seen police violence, and we've seen, white violence against the Black community, to the point where individuals are being victimized. But it's a community that's been victimized. So in that situation, this is what I want to say too, that we have to understand. When they supposedly ended slavery, when they ended colonialism, they injected a class of people who would be, who will no longer be white, and give them what they call that, any kind of semblance of power by being voted into office. And this is everywhere. This is not just here in the United States, but everywhere where African people were colonized by the capitalist system, by the Europeans. They had to change the system so that they could no longer be up under what they call chattel slavery, or upon the colonialism, direct rule by Europeans or people outside. And anytime that we are ruled by people outside, that means we have no power. And that power that, so we're asking them, we're trying to beg them for civil rights. But if you have to beg an outsider for your rights, that means that at any given moment they can change it. They can go back. And this is what has happened to us in the United States, is that we've had all these rights granted to us by the system, or even by the Constitution, and they have been reversed in many instances, and it's taken many more years to struggle to try to get the same thing back, but we'll never have any power up under this system. That's why we say all remedies have been, exhausted, because we've been calling and asking for remedies by the government of the United States, or the government of France, or the government of Britain, or whatever, and they maintain their power and their control, and we are suffering. Our people are suffering everywhere. And so even when we talk about the African continent, there's 54 countries that are supposed to be independent, but they have no control over the natural resources or any of the resource or anything. And so, but they have injected a group of people who have black skin, but they have a white mask over their face, because they're operating on behalf of the European, community, or the United States of America, to the point of where and this is a class system. This is what we got to understand. Capitalism also injects a class system, and that means it makes people, they get to put people that look like that they're black or whatever, but they're acting on behalf of the system, and they want to be rich like white people. And so therefore, and they want to exploit our people just as much as white people want to exploit us, to the point of where, because they can't maintain their position if they don't have that, if they don't do that, if they don't operate on behalf of the outside forces. So that's why we said we use the term capture nations and captured nations. We call it exploiting nations and exploited nations. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, when we look at our situation, we see that we are under these nations that are getting rich, continue to get rich. Britain and France and Spain and Portugal are still reaping the benefit, and Belgium are still reaping the benefit of their former colonial position, because they have people who are in power. And even this weekend, where we had a situation with Russia, where some guy, rebelled against what's his name, Putin. This group that is the army, is a mercenary army that has been, used by Putin to try to deal with the Iranian situation, are people who are controlling the wealth in Africa. In other words, they have been called in by these African dictators for them to remain in power. They've brought this Russian group into controlling the mine, and now these groups have taken over the mine. And the guy that is that has been antagonizing Putin in the so-called Ukraine war, his group got their base in Central African Republic, where they have taken over the mine, and the gold and the diamonds are being controlled, by them, and they become rich, and they become powerful. Because how do you be able to challenge the president of your country if you're not rich and powerful? So therefore, fortunately for Putin, even though that was his main force, that they withdrawn and went back to their camps and not march on Moscow as they were doing this weekend. So I wanted to point that out to show that the European powers, including the United States, the United States is a European nation. Europeans control the United States. They are taking the wealth of the world and continue to exploit the people of the African people and other people, other exploited people in the world. And once we begin to understand, that's why we are calling for the nation states. That we're talking about 5 states. We're talking about Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama, and South Carolina. Georgia and South Carolina. And so, to the point where we recognize that no problem can be solved until we get control of land because it's only through the occupation of land that you will be able to have any power over your own life or your own destiny.
Definitely a lot of important points you shared, and I don't know, because it looked like I got some issues with my equipment, so we might end the show early today. I don't know how long it's gonna last, but I got some stuff about to die, and my computer screen that's not working, so I had to use a backup plan. But we're gonna be on as long as we can. But yeah, you said a lot of very important things. Something that kind of stuck out. You talked about, this is a class system. And I think it's important that we understand how capitalism creates this class system, and where individuals who you might think, who might look like you, don't necessarily have the same interest in you because they have completely bought into, or they are completely dependent upon a system, and they have gained favor from the exploitive nature of the system to the point where they will and they do benefit from the exploitation of their own people, their own kind. Like I said, that's the very nature of capitalism. And as you saw, even on an international scale, this system is based on the exploitation of the natural resources that are held by the indigenous people. Right. See, you have to understand, because a lot of times you look at areas like Africa, Jamaica, Haiti, and be like, man, you see poverty, and they become synonymous with poverty and war and crime. These places are the richest places on the planet. The richest places on the planet. Europe is not a very wealthy place. They don't have a lot of natural resources. They gain their power and their wealth from the exploitation of other people. That's really important to understand, especially when you understand the power dynamic and what we're actually up against. Because a lot of us, we look at the terrible things that happen to us under this system, and we get wrapped up into black versus white. I don't like them white folks. I can't stand them. And I understand it. History will explain that, very well, why you would feel ill toward a certain group of people. But we have to understand that ain't really the struggle. See, what we up against is a system. Now, white people have benefited from this system. White people created this system. They benefit from it, but it ain't just we up against these people because they white. We up against a system that is based on the exploitation of our people, the exploitation of people in general. We got to make sure we're not confused by that, because you can get people who are as black as me, and you can look at the screen. I'm not a light-skinned brother. I got plenty of melanin, But you can get a brother or sister, or people who are as dark as I am in this system, and they will do the same thing if they are working under the umbrella of this exploitive system. That's why we say we have to change this economic system. That's why we talk about scientific socialism. And I know when you hear a lot of us, when we hear words like this, we kind of cringe, because we've been trained and conditioned to believe that socialism and communism and all of these other isms that is not capitalism is evil, it's bad, it's wrong, and it's the enemy of our people. No, it is the enemy of your enemy. It is the enemy of a system of exploitation. What we have to understand is we have been indoctrinated into a system of exploitation. See, whatever your economic system is going to dictate what your educational system is, your political systems, your social systems, your justice systems. All of the systems in society emerge out of your economic system. Because your economic system is how the people gain the resources and distribute the resources needed to survive. So that's very important. So it's going to dictate how the nature of your economic system is going to dictate the nature of all other systems in your society. So it's important that you get your economic system right. And if capitalism, which is the economic system, basically has been dominating the entire world, capitalism is based on exploitation, greed, racism, and classism. And that's what you see throughout the world. You see these elements throughout the world. In the United States of America, when you look at our economics, when you look at the justice system, well, if you got some money, you might get some justice. But if you don't, you just shit out of luck. It's people who've been in jail for years, haven't even went to trial. They ain't been convicted of nothing. They just don't have the money to get up for their bail. So if they ain't got the money under this system, well, hey, especially if you don't have the money to hire you an attorney, because if you get you a good lawyer, a good attorney, and these good things, then hey, you might can buy you some justice in America. But my broader point is, well, under this economic system, it is not about cultivating human beings. It's not about pulling out the best in society and the best of human beings and cultivating us to reach our highest potential. It's not about that. It doesn't do that. It is about exploiting us. So we're educated so we can be efficiently exploited. You know, we're dumbed down to a certain degree where we are able to function in a factory. We're able to run the company, but we're not able to dissect it, break it down, and see the contradictions in the ways in which it is exploited and the ways in which it is better. Because within our educational system, we're not taught how to think. We're taught what to think. We're not taught how to think. And you can break down every system in America, from the educational system, from the justice system, from the political system. You think the people who get into office are held accountable to the people who voted them in? No, they are held accountable to these special interest groups, these people that fund them. Because that's what happened. Corporations buy politicians, and then they put them in office, and then they hold them accountable to their interests. They be like, oh, well, look, hey, I need you to sign these laws so I can dump these chemicals in these neighborhoods. Damn what it does to the people, because I got to make my money. And that is the nature of capitalism. And that as long as this economic system exists, you are going to have poverty. You are going to have crime. You're going to have all of these negative things from homelessness, and you can just keep on naming them. So we have to, as part of our liberation struggle, we cannot neglect the system that is producing much of the ills and the trauma and the devastation in the whole world, period. And I'm gonna yield on that. I'm gonna put it back over to you.
Okay, yeah. So socialism is what we are. We want to see liberation about people. Understand that we talk about a socialist system. Now, the present system of capitalism is a world capitalist system. We do not have a world socialist system. Matter of fact, we have countries who are struggling to build socialism, being attacked by the United States under NATO, and and we can see that, like the embargo on Cuba, the embargo on Venezuela, and the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya was a result of people organizing to give the people the benefits of their resources. And once a government decides that it's going to give the benefit of resources to its people, the United States then comes in, and the European countries, NATO, come in, and they either overthrow or assassinate the leader of a country, or they make the country not be able to sell their goods in the capitalist system by imposing an embargo or boycott on the goods. And Venezuela is one good example in the Western Hemisphere of a nation that has the richest oil deposits of any nation in the world, and they're not able at this time to sell their oil because the United States has imposed an embargo and also has pushed for Saudi Arabia and other oppressive nations who are dictatorship, and to put pressure to make the oil of Venezuela not to be sold on the market. And these are the kind of things that and when we deal with the community, the African community, the new African community in the United States, we see that that we are affected by every so-called recession or depression to the greater extent than anybody, and all the things that we are suffering from, and we're supposed to have a $9 billion, $9 trillion, whatever economy that's supposed to be as a result of the monies and stuff that have come into our community, but we have no control over anything that comes into our community. And all our establishment stores and all that have been closed down or been bought out by outside forces. This is the result of the capitalist system. This is why we are saying that we are not for a capitalist system. We have in our independent state that we are going to build. We're going to build socialism.
Definitely. No doubt. So I have actually, my screen has went out, so y'all gonna have to deal with looking at a avatar of Brother Malcolm for the remainder of the show, but that's okay. We're gonna continue to move on. But yeah, go to the our social media. Go to the people. Queen T. Jones, how you doing? Hate crimes, urban terrorism, environmental racism against melanated people. We gotta raise hell in our community. Not only do we have to raise hell in our community, we have to take control of our community. We have to take back control of our community. We have to work to gain the institutions that govern our lives. We got to create institutions that we control, because I don't think just begging these people to do right by us is good enough. I mean, we have to do what we got to do with what we have at the time, but we should always be working toward to improving our condition, to moving that needle, to going step by step till we get that ultimate goal of liberation. We can't just accept, the rest of our lives. We gotta hope that these white folks or this white power structure does good by us. They hope that they give us justice. They stop murdering us. That they stop contaminating our waters and dumping chemicals and nuclear waste byproducts near playgrounds and elementary schools, and all of the things that they do that is devastating to us simply because they want to cut costs and make as much money as they possibly can. We can't continue to depend on these people to do right by us, because they have a long track record of not doing right by us, of doing just the opposite, of basically giving us some kind of pacifier so we can shut the hell up and they can continue with their exploitation. That's what we find ourselves today. The people who have been getting away with exploiting us in the most brutal ways, most inhumane ways for centuries and centuries and centuries. But things develop from the simple to the complex. This is a protracted struggle. So we got to make sure that we are always focusing on the goal, and we're just moving step by step by step, and we don't give up, and we don't get discouraged. We don't look at all the negativity and start spreading the negativity ourselves, because a lot of us get into those type of traps. We look at the negative things that go on in our community and the ways that our minds have been colonized and create behaviors that in many cases are counterproductive and self-destructive even, and we focus on that to the point that we feel that that's all our community exists of, are these negative elements. So we can't get caught into that type of trap. Those things are dangerous and it's counterproductive. Those of us who know better, we have to be focused 100% on the things we need to do to gain liberation, to gain control of our communities. Right now, if the only thing we can do is create community gardens, independent gardens, spread the word about independence, educate your family, educate your neighbors on the ideas and concepts and principles of independence. Let them understand that we got an option. We don't have to accept for the authority and the brutality and hegemony of a system of a people who have benefited from our exploitation and continue to benefit from our exploitation. Whatever it is that we can do at our time to help move us forward. You know, like I said, if you want to start collectively creating home gardens so you can produce your own food, and we can disconnect from buying the foods from their stores, or even do something about these food deserts that exist in so many of our communities where we don't have access to healthy food. You know, if you want to start with homeschooling that will ultimately grow into bigger schools where you can purchase buildings or get something that we can control. You know, these are small steps, but we're ultimately, you know, that's not the solution. That's not the goal. That's just part of the journey that we can ultimately reach and gain true liberation when we gain land independent self-determination. It ain't something that happened overnight, because the predicament that we find ourselves in did not develop overnight. We're looking at a over 400-year process that led us to where we are right now. And it's going to take us a little minute to get out of it, but we can't get discouraged and think that, you know, well, we can't do it, or it ain't going to happen, or there's so much violence in our community and our people just messed up in the head. No, that type of thinking is the byproduct of propaganda that has been placed on us by people who are exploiting us and want to continue to exploit us. And I'm going to yield on that. Hope y'all heard me.
I think one thing we have to understand that as trying to build, when building a nation state, that we got to have our own army. And the Republic of New Afrika has an army called the Black Legion. We have to build. We're very small right now, but we have to build those institutions that we said that we know that we have to govern our community. And so it is not an underground, you know, revolutionary. This is an army for a nation to defend itself and to defend its people, and so and to solve the problems that are in our own community. Because if we don't do that, we got to create those institutions, you know, prior to becoming independent, so that when we become independent, we'll be able to take control of the areas that we designate as our, you know, our territory, our land, and to the point of where, and then we can build all the other institutions. We got to control the healthcare institution. We got to control the educational institute, any kind of institution that exists in our community. We got to move to control it, or to shut it down if it's not doing the thing that it's supposed to do. Because we cannot continue to allow our enemy to educate our children. We cannot continue to allow education the system to treat our people and to let our people die of curable diseases, not incurable disease, but we're dying more from curable disease than we are of incurable disease. And in the 60s, when sickle cell anemia was not known, the Black Panther Party was the organization that raised up the whole question of sickle cell anemia that largely affects Black people, African people, and a blood disease that, you know, and we were able to raise up, you know, because we had an organization that was about independence of our community. So this is what we're talking about is not something that had not been done before. We have been, ever since we've been here, creating independent institutions to do the things that will be necessary for us to survive as a people. So we're going to go beyond survival. That is, we're going to create our own nation state so that we'll be able to go to the challenges of the world faces, and we're going to create a new system of economics that the people are going to be benefited, and people are going to be in control, and the working people and the peasants, the farmers, whoever that own the land processes, and wherever we are in the world, are going to be able to feed ourselves and do the things that would be necessary for us to come to power. And in order to come to power, we have to have control over the land. And once we get control over the land, And we got to do everything we can to possibly build up all the institutions that will be necessary. Hopefully, we'll have many institutions already in place so that when we do get our control over our land, then we'll be able to just go in running as a people.
Exactly. Well, man, you said a lot of important points. Hold on. You said a lot of important points. I mean, where do I even want to start? I mean, the importance of your own military. It's important to defend yourself. Like you said, we have the legionnaires. But also within our community, because like there are positive and negatives in all things. And a lot of times we look at the negative within our community and we just focus on the negative, especially when you look at like the gun violence, the gang violence, so-called gangs. But when you actually look at this, we already have us a ready-made military within the streets. They just have not been politicized. They're still under the same thinking that has been, their minds have been impregnated with the capitalist propaganda, thinking that, well, the most important thing is we got to make this money, get this money, even if that means at the detriment of our own community. But within the gangs, they're already structured. They're already organized. They already understand chain of command. And just study how gangs operate. Gangs are very organized, even though we don't look at them like that. But what needs to happen is we need to convert these individuals from having a criminalistic mentality to a revolutionary mentality where they're no longer tearing down the community or working to in a destructive manner, but actually defending the community and building the community up. We can do that. We can do that. It's possible. We got to stop being afraid of our youth. That's something we got to do. We got to stop being afraid of our youth, and we have to engage with our youth. But I mean, we can do that. That's why we have to be on the same page about what we're trying to do. I'm gonna go to comment real quick from our social media page. Brother Obafemi, how you doing? In a capitalist system, we have capital punishment. If you don't have the capital, you get punishment. You can tell he a rapper by how you put them words together. But actually, that's so true. That is so true. Grandmaster, just something else you said. You talked about how things that we're talking about is nothing new.
Right.
It's nothing that we haven't done in the past. We've, in many cases, have always been able to create independent institutions. And you gave the examples of the Black Panther Party. And it's something that they don't teach us about in school. You don't teach about the Black Panther Party in school. What I was taught, and it wasn't because the teachers raised it up, it's because I raised it up. I was like, hey, what about the Black Panther Party? What about the Black Panther Party? Teach us about the Black Panther Party. And basically the teacher told me was, they weren't nothing but a bunch of drug addicts. It wasn't until I actually met one of the founding members of the Black Panther Party, and he gave it to me, from the horse's mouth, gave me the actual documents, and I saw for myself what they actually did, and it blew my mind. Brother by the name of Elbert Big Man Howard, one of the original 6 Black Panther members. I did a project with this brother when he was living in Memphis, Tennessee. He's an ancestor now, rest in power, comrade. But I would sit for hours and hours, and he would just tell me all the things that they would do. He would tell me how they would just basically have a meeting and say, okay, what's going on in the community? What can we fix? What do we have the power to fix? And then they would go into action and they would fix it. He told me the case where he had to meet with some people in the community. And when he went to meet with them, him personally, he felt uncomfortable because he showed up and it was a lot of disabled people. A lot of, people who really just had all these terrible, disabilities. But when he talked to them, he said, look, we can't even get into the buildings. We can't get up the stairs. There's nothing that caters to us, that helps us out, get access to getting where we have to go. And they went out and they struggled, and they got the ramps that you see today, the handicapped spots that you see today, places that make it
feasible for people with disabilities to have access to. Black Panther Party are responsible for that. They never get credit for it. Breakfast programs in school, the Black Panther parties are responsible for that. For individuals who don't have to go to school and pay for their lunch so they can eat, because within the community, children were going to school hungry. They didn't have any food to eat. So they created a program that fed thousands and thousands of children every day. And the government looked at that and they were embarrassed because they realized, wait a minute, because not only did the Black Panthers feed the children, but they were giving them political education. So every morning, children got a meal and they got educated about the wicked nature of this system, about the true nature of their history. In a European power structure, the white power structure saw this and they said, oh, this is dangerous. This is actually dangerous, because somebody who is actually about the freedom and liberation of their people are actually teaching the children, not us. So this is dangerous to our capitalist system. An educated public, a public who understands that it is in their best interest to have control of their own community. So these things, we have to study our history to see what has been done, to see what is possible. Because these things were done in the 60s. But I mean, that's not the only, creating our own institution, that's not the only thing that we've done. We've had control over land. We've had a certain level of independence. After the Civil War, you saw the emergence of several independent Black communities, independent Black townships. Many of them, most of them thrived because they were not under the power of people who were trying to exploit them. We have examples of that. We should study it, find out the things that went right, find out the things that went wrong. And we can build upon that today, because today we have more resources than our ancestors had. We have more potential than our ancestors had. But we can't believe that our struggle is impossible, that we're talking about some mission impossible. We've been trained and we've been conditioned by our enemy to think that we can't govern ourselves. We've been trained and conditioned by our enemy to think that we can't do for ourselves. And the reason they trained and conditioned us in that way is because once we start understanding that we can do for ourselves, that we can build for ourselves, that we can govern ourselves, once we do that, once we think like that, then that is the biggest threat to their power. And everybody know it. Because as you said earlier, it might have been on the radio broadcast that all of these superpower, these super nations in history, these empires in history, they eventually fall from within. And right now, within the belly of the beast lives the biggest threat to this white power structure. And that is us. And they know it. So it's in their best interest to keep us sleepwalking, to continue to educate us in a way that will merge us with this American nightmare that they call an American dream. But once we wake up and start doing for self, then they're in trouble, and they know this. And I'm gonna yield on that.
Yeah, and Black Panther program called Survival Program.
Exactly.
And Survival Program, they, like when they had old people who couldn't go to the, they got buses to take them to the store to get their groceries, different things like that, and they would view that as a threat. That's why the government attacked, the Black Panther's offices, and continually put pressure, try to criminalize, the Black Panther Party and all organizations that began. They were talking about Black power, power for the people, power for Black people, call power to the Black community. Were being attacked by the forces, the law enforcement forces, all the way to the local, all the way up to the federal. And these are the kind of things. This is what happened, and that's why the Black Panther Party was not able to survive to the 80s. It closed down in 1980 in Oakland, California, because because they have, and many of the Black Panthers, over 30 Black Panthers were killed, in the struggle to build up their organization by the government forces, by law enforcement forces, and they created even splits within our organization in that time because when you start talking about socialism, when you start talking about attacking capitalism, when you start talking about that you're supporting the Vietnamese and their just struggle for their land, then you have become that threat, and then they were beginning to win. We were beginning to win the minds of the people.
Exactly.
By the program, and actually the survival program was really the survival for the Black Panthers had not created the survival program. The Black Panther Party would not have been able to exist to the time that it did at the end. And so this is what we have to begin to do. Teach our history, teach our most recent history, because it's from 1966. Let's a little bit. That says in 1961 up to about 1980, we had the greatest period of unity among our people in the community, and we created organizations that challenged the system. But we also found out who the enemy was. We found out that the United States government was our greatest enemy, and they did everything they could to destroy not only the so-called militant organization, but even church, even school, where people were in school, students that were in school were being attacked. Churches were being attacked for allowing people to meet in their walls. Even the so-called civil rights organization were defunded, as a result of the power that they displayed, and with the assassination of King was the end of the civil rights movement in the United States. And these are the kind of things that we have to begin. And why? Because he was moving to internationalize the struggle that Malcolm X had advocated, that we should internationalize our struggle. And then when you start saying that the United States is the biggest enemy of the world, that the biggest killer of all people, the war, the people that, the military, complex was controlling and running the world, and that capitalism was not the way, then you get assassinated. You would get assassinated, and King was assassinated because he was moving to the poor people with an alliance of not only Africans but all people who are being exploited economically by the system, and moving to march on Washington, not just to talk about civil rights, but to talk about human rights. And so these are the kind of things that we have to understand, that those of us who lived in that period, we have to try to get people to understand that we ain't talking about that way back then. There wasn't no way back then. That was 50 years ago. China was a poor nation 50 years ago. Now China is one of the richest nations. So we know we're saying that because it shows that development can take place if you organize, if you move to organize yourself and to get your people under control of a nation state, a nationalism that's going to raise you up to the point of where you'll be able to make these changes. And like we said, it's a protracted struggle, but we know that any given moment, once we organize the minds of the people to focus on what our goals are, then we know that and we know that just from the 60s that things can overturn overnight, as a result of the pressure that's being put forward, and so and those were the revolutionary times, the revolutionary, the ideas of coming to the people and understand that the people make history. And this is one legacy that is still here that we got to understand. The people are the makers of history. And so when we talk about the uneducated, organized, we know that the greatest potential is in educating the uneducated. And we talk about redirecting those people who are miseducated. And that's what happened in a little kind of a microcosm type of thing in the 60s, where you had that combination coming together, and that is why they had to do everything they could to destroy that movement.
Exactly. Go to some more of our comments. If you're just joining us, you're looking at Avatar Brother Malcolm, cause my equipment kind of failed me, and this is the only way I can get to the people. But that's all right. We're gonna do it how we do. Brother Bo Money, how you doing? Good to hear from you, Minister of Information in the Republic of New Afrika. If y'all haven't had an opportunity, make sure y'all tune in on George Jackson Radio, George Jackson University Radio. This brother has a dynamic perspective as well as some awesome guests. So make sure y'all check this brother and everything that he does. And I'm gonna have to get you back on the show, comrade, because you had one of our better shows when you was there. But he said there were independent New African nation states during slavery and before the Civil War or the 13th Amendment. And you're right. You're absolutely right. Not too far from where I'm from in Mississippi, we had Mount Value, Mississippi, which was actually a communal list nation, independent township. There was basically free from the enslavement of people, as well as got through the whole Jim Crow era, all of that unscathed. They didn't have to go through any of that, because their people had a certain level of autonomy, a certain level of independence, and they were shielded from that, because they had control of the land, and they were independent, and they had, some level of self-government. So you're absolutely right, brother. Brother Che, Jorge Che, how you doing? Nieves, how you doing? Power to the people, free the land. Attica is all of us, and that brother was a part of the Attica Rebellion. This brother has quite a inspirational and awesome story. A wealth of history right there with Brother Che. Also, he says, we know that Brother Malcolm and MLK were murdered because they came to a rude awakening to whom is the real enemy of the world. And you are exactly right. Exactly right. Both Brother Malcolm and Brother Martin Luther King, both were assassinated, but not only because they understood who the enemy were, but they were exposing them in a real way that went to the heart of their exploitation and their power, and they became a real threat. See, you got to understand that when you're doing certain things and people ain't bothering you, that means you're really not threatening them. That means, well, if you get what you want to get, what you're trying to advocate for, then it's still not a real threat to this system. But once you hit on the things that you really need to be doing, what you really need to be fighting for, they're coming for you. That's for real. You got to realize, when Martin Luther King was talking about integrating toilets and all of that good stuff, it was one thing. But when he started exposing the evils of capitalism, started talking about a poor people's campaign, started criticizing the Vietnam War, he had to go. They had to get him. So definitely. But we've been on for about an hour. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, making the show successful, because you are the most important part of this show. And hopefully together we can engage in nation building and going after the minds of the people, because like you said, the power lies within the people. With the people on our side, there's nothing we can't overcome. There's nothing we can't do, but we got to get the people, we got to get them out of the propaganda machines and the miseducation of the United Snakes of America. We got to start building our own institutions. So once we do free the land, we can hit the land running, and we won't have to start from scratch talking about, oh, we got land now, what we going to do? We need to be focusing on those elements, getting those things down right now, so we will be prepared to take care of ourselves. We can talk about, hey, we want that New African independence. We want to get that independence, but with that independence come responsibility. So we got to get prepared for independence right now. Grandmaster Teacher, you got any closing words before we get out of here?
Yes. So we, as a people, we have to stop, like you said, getting pressured by the enemy to do negativity, to look at ourselves on a negative level. We got to stop thinking that the people are ignorant. You know, that in other words, that means that they're stupid. The people are ignorant because they do not have the information. It is up to us to provide the information and make sure that everybody understands that information can be obtained objectively by anybody. And so when we talk, anything we talk about, it can be challenged by doing your own research. Once you do your own research, you'll be able to see the truth of what we're saying. And we advocate that everybody that is in the, within this radio or within the internet, to begin to understand that's the reason we were able to be active, was because we did our own research and we became active in the community. Once you do your research, you can become active and you'll be able to influence the people in a positive fashion rather than in a negative fashion. And so I think that it's important that we have these, we have NABA and all these institutions, and to begin to get to understand that the people this is going to help the development and the growth of the minds of the people. And once we get the minds of the people, we'll be able to do the proper action that will be done and need to be done.
Exactly. Well said. Well said. Before we get out of here, got one more comment I want to address. Brother Che, you said when the Black Panther Party began unifying the people of all colors, that's when capitalists realized that they had to kill the Panthers. Good point, because a lot of times we don't, a lot of times we get wrapped up into I don't like white people. I don't, I like whoever, whatever it is. And that's a certain level of thinking that comes about usually when you first discover that you've been lied to. It's almost like the steps of consciousness. You get angry, you get mad, you get pissed at everything. Pretty sure all of us was there. But that's not a stage that you really need to stay in, because that stage ain't really going to gain you liberation. It's going to gain you because you ain't going to be focused on what you really need to be doing. What we're going up against is a system of exploitation, a system of oppression, a system, not some individuals who don't like us for whatever reason. There are individuals who created an entire system that is built on the exploitation of our people. And until we destroy this system, then we ain't gonna gain our liberation. Even if we gain the land, then the only thing we're gonna do, as Fred Hampton said, we just replace white slave masters with black slave masters. And that's not what we're trying to do at all. We're trying to create a reality, a world where people can actually be free and we actually can grow to our highest level of human potential. And that's something we can do. We can do that, y'all. I think it's our responsibility to do that. But I'm going to leave on that note. Make sure you join us tomorrow with the New African Perspective and all of the shows on NABA during the week. I am Brother Prophecy. I'm with my elder Grandmaster Teacher for Dolly. And let me see how we're going to end this thing. And as always, we're going to leave y'all with our battle cry. And that is, free the land, free the land, free the land.
America, full of promises. Time to cash them in. You run from it quick. You never keep your word. I learned from it quick. You keep abusing me. You dumb.
Europeans murdered 98% of the indigenous population right here in Turtle Island in order to steal the land. An entire nation of African people were captured and forced into a brutal system of chattel slavery just so they could work and cultivate the land.
all wars are fought over land, not over terrorism, not over religion, not even to win the hearts and minds of the people, but for the actual land and the resources within the land. So it is safe to say that land is the foundation to all freedom. So if we truly want to be free, then our struggle is for land. Free the land.